family law 2 are marriage, wedding, not in everything will come as a nikah here. So marriage is the topic I have selected. Apostasy and conversion. Apostasy and conversion is the second topic. Third topic being polygamy and muta marriage. Fourth one is preemption. Because all these will come under unit 1 only. These are all very basic concept of Muslim law. Without this, we cannot think of Muslim law. And basic essential. So, today we shall have some concentration. More than that, you know, Sharia Act of 1937, the Sharia Act of 1935, which is nothing but a Indian Muslim personal law, which is nothing but a Indian Muslim personal law, and this was enacted during the British period, and they also included these topics like marriage, dissolution of marriage, dower. Marriage, dissolution of marriage and dower are such of the very important facts and factums or categories which are dealt under the unit 1 of this Muslim laws. So, since it is having very, very vast influence, it has a vast influence on the Muslim people or society, so it must be dealt in brief. Okay. Introduction. What we used to call it as a marriage, wedding, is termed here in Muslim as nikah. According to the Muslim law or Muhammadan law, marriage is nothing but a civil contract, and it is not a bondage for 7 life or so, in that, not like that. It is not a sanctity one. It's only a civil contract where the parties has to follow certain of the terms and conditions put forth in the agreement to achieve the objective of that contract or exchange of the value of the object of the contract by the partners. So, all the requirement of a valid agreement as per the Indian Contract Act are required even for the marriage being solemnized under Muslim law. So, you can consider the Muslim marriage, that is nikah, as a sacrament or a contract, but since it is a contract, marriage, apart from giving rise to certain marital rights and obligations, it has certain marital rights and obligation, confers the status of husband and wife on the parties and of legitimacy of their children. So the marriage, the king will come come up, and their parentage, their legitimacy, their maintenance, their inheritance problem, everything has to be taken care of by the head of the family. So definition. Coming to the definition. Marriage according to the Mohammedan law, though it is not a sacramental or pious, or to say it's a holy bondage between the girl and boy for lives together. No, it is not that. It is not a sacramental, but a true civil contract. Even in this civil contract, all the rights and obligations it creates, and it will arise us immediately, and are not dependent on any condition precedent, such as the payment of dower by husband to a wife and other. So again, either period is there, giving of dower is there, proposal is, it comes under essentialities. So, what is marriage? Marriage according to the Mohammedan law is not, though not a sacramental, but a civil contract that you have to write. All the rights and obligations it creates, arises immediately, and are not dependent on any condition precedent, such as the payment of dower by the husband to a wife. The fundamental concept of individual liberty and responsibility, which is a cornerstone of Muslim jurisprudence, is incorporated in the institution of marriage. This is most important. The fundamental concept of individual liberty and responsibility is also there. You can witness in the institution of marriage of Muslim. Marriage depends upon the free will of the parties concerned. This is the word you must think of. Free will must be there. No father, no father-in-law, no probable mother-in-law, no, nothing. No one should come into the picture and compel, force, disturb the mindset of the either of the parties to get into the marriage. No, nothing. It should go ahead with the free will of the parties concerned. So, does it will be like that one only. Marriage is a contract of civil law, and it shows trace of having developed out of few terms of this contractship. The bridegroom concludes contract with legal guardian of bride, and he undertakes to pay the dower. So there are customarily and legally, there are certain other aspects that one has to. So what the definition for here is? Definition is nothing but a civil contract. It is not a sacramental. And marriage should happen between the partners, say groom and bride. And their concept or consent must be free of any coercion, any force, any compulsion. This is the thing. This is the most. Only to the free judgment of these two partners, yes, marriage can. Even for that, before going to the essentiality, it is very much required that you have to see the capacity. They will say capacity, not the status quo, capacity. What is this one? What is the capacity? Whether capacity is whether the bridegroom is physically, mentally and economically fit enough to go for the contract of marriage. He must financially good. He must physically fit so that he can carry out all the important duties of marital life. That is the physical. And for that, economy. Both put together, he must have strength in the mentality. Yes, I am ready to marry such and such girl. Mental preparation, physical fitness and economical standby. These are all the very important things which will give a kind of maturity for the bridegroom to go and marry a particular on proposal. He has to give proposal. That is. What about the bride? What is the gate factor here? When a boy of 7 years, say, but it is not in practice, however, the rule says so, when a boy of 7 years possessing all these three can go for marriage without any hindrance. But usually 18 years boy in society, they can go for the marriage. Coming to the bride, yes, she must physically fit, mentally fit, economically fit, but if she happen to be a minor also, can go for nikah provided her guardian must give nod. They have to say nod. So bride, even being a minor, can go for nikah provided she is physically, mentally and economically okay, and that this marriage has to occur only with the help of the guardian. Here you say guardian, that is mother or her father or maternal uncle. So these guardian, among these three, anyone may come and see that nikah. When she happened to be minor. So this particular marriage, marriage can happen, but consummation of marriage cannot happen till she attains majority. That is because of puberty she will attain majority. Puberty, becoming adult. Puberty is most important to see that whether she has attained the majority. When she will get puberty, nobody knows. So it is between 12 to 15 years of age she may get this one, and at that time also she can accept this marriage. Accepting the marriage or rejecting the marriage will happen when she will be between 15 to 18 years of age. Bride being minor and she got nikah by the help of any guardian, and when she got puberty and she will be proven as a major between 12 and 15, at the age of 15 she can reject that particular marriage if consummation did not happen. If consummation of marriage did not happen, she can refuse that marriage. If consummation is happened, nothing. And meanwhile, she happened to be in the house of the guardian only, mother, father, uncle. Between 12 and 15 years of her age, and though she had married, she has to be in the custody of mother only, but if not father or else the maternal uncle. So at that time, no court will come into the picture and it will give authority for the husband to take the custody of that minor girl. So only when she attains puberty and 15 years of age and where there is no consummation of marriage, then if she wants, she can retain the marriage, or if she doesn't want, for that she can take 3 years of continuous discussion, debate and thinking over that one, and within that completion of 18 years of her, she can reject that particular marriage with that particular. For that, consummation of marriage must not have happened. This is the one. Marriage under capacity, bride of 7 years to 18 years can go for nikah provided he is physically, mentally, economically fit. Because nobody is there to compel them, stop them. So that is it. Only these three are the important. So even this same three will apply to the bride. And it is proven that even minor can go for nikah with the help of guardian. Father, mother and maternal uncle being the guardian. And when she got this puberty between the age of 12 and 15 years, she will be called as major and consummation can happen. But if there is no consummation, then she can think of coming out of the tie or contract of this nikah between her 15 years to 18 years. This is most important. This is most important. And this is the capacity. And this type of capacity is always in accordance to the Muslim law. Marriage Restraint Act, Child Marriage Restraint Act of 1929 is also applicable. Is also applicable. This much you have to know in this one. So coming to again the procedure, how a nikah will occur. So nikah will occur, the marriage will occur because of proposal and acceptance. Because of this is capacity and procedure. Process. One. Proposal and acceptance. Very important. There should not be a coercion. That is one thing. Proposal means here bridegroom will give proposal and this must be accepted in one sitting by the bride. So this is known as Kabul. Kabul. So proposal and acceptance. Here bridegroom give proposal. That is sitting in front of the bridegroom being a Pardanasi and in presence of Qazi and other relatives, the bridegroom here will give his proposal that he want to marry this particular girl of this house. And this proposal will be either in oral or writing, and it should be heard by this lady. And by orally she must give her acceptance. For that, she can consume any duration. And this should happen in one sitting. Before Qazi Presence of cause is very much. So proposal and acceptance is the first procedure to be observed. So as I said, no guardian, no societal, no other relatives, even father, mother will have to compel them. So there should not be any coercion. Say no. No coercion, fraud, force, fraud and undue influences in order to get into the nikah. In order to get into nikah, nobody should do any of their trick. So that coercion, fraud and force and other undue influences should show it impact. Third one. Here, third one is agreement for contract. Something they will write, or if not, they will discuss. A contract entered into by a guardian on behalf of the minor may be repudiated. That's what I have told earlier. Repudiated, this is the word you must have. When the bride is between 15 to 18 and she is known as a major because of her puberty and already married, now she can either accept, if she accept, consummation of marriage will happen and everything. If there is no consummation had happened, so now she can reject it. Rejecting that had marriage by the girl after attaining the age between 15 to 18, that is known as repudiation by the minor on attaining majority. And in the same manner, marriage during the minority may be set aside by the minor at the age of only. This repudiation is given to the bride only. Coming to the fourth point. The parties to the marriage may enter into any antenuptial or postnuptial agreement enforceable by law, provided they are reasonable and not opposed to the policy of that is there. Fourth one is again a kind of agreement entered by these partners for antenuptial or postnuptial thing. Okay. And breach of contract of marriage is also punishable like that of the Indian Contract Act. So breach, there must not be no breach. There must not be any breach. One should be adhered to the terms and conditions of the made contract. Then only the nikah will goes very smoothly and effectively. Sixth one, it was also pointed out that a valid marriage created rights and duties between. Why marriage should occur? Marriage, it is the intimacy between the two parties, male and female. And not only the intimacy, but this intimacy will be turned into the responsibility of reaping the, taking care of the children and allow them to rear like a very good citizen of the society. In that way, responsibility will also come under many head of the societal life. Seventh one is, after this proposal and acceptance, everything, and to the completion of the nikah process, dower come into the picture. What is dower? It's a sum of money or even inclusive of some immovable, movable property promised by the bridegroom to be paid or paid at the time only, to be paid to the wife in consideration of the acceptance of this particular marriage. And even if no dower is fixed, in hurry burry, if they did not fix the dower amount, then also the law confers the right of dower upon the wife to collect it. So, fixation of dower is a must. All boy must come forward to give the dower amount to the bridegroom for having accepted him as a life partner or a partner for that particular nikah or contract. That dower amount, it has a very significance in the life of the lady, and she is having a very legal right over the dower amount to consume. So, since the marriage contract is easily dissolvable, the right of dower to the wife is a fundamental feature of the marriage contract. So, any refusal to pay this amount, dower amount, fixed or even not fixed, the wife has many right to refuse many things in the marital life. The right of refusal to cohabit, live with him. And this right is not available in the case of deferred amount. Only in respect of where the amount is not fixed and not paid, then only this right will come to the bride and she can refuse the cohabitation with that particular till the dower amount is paid. This comes very important essential requirements. Coming to types. Kinds of marriage I will give you later on. So now essential of a valid marriage. This is a procedure under which the nikah will be solemnized by the qazi in presence of relatives, friends and others. Now coming to the essential, this is the very important portion, and they may ask capacity and essential are most important. What are the essential? What are the essential? A marriage is, there are three types. One is valid type of marriage. What is valid marriage type? Shahi. Shahi is the valid type of marriage. Batil is the void. Fasid is the irregular type of marriage. Later on I will give you more details regarding this. So a marriage, say valid marriage, if it is recognized by the court of law, following condition must be fulfilled in a valid Muslim marriage. What are the essentialities? Number one, parties to the marriage. There must be parties. Without parties present, we cannot solemnize the nikah. So the parties to the marriage, that is husband and wife, must be competent, what I have told under capacity. So bridegroom and bride, both must be capable of or competent enough to go for nikah. Bridegroom and bride must be competent enough to go for nikah. The second point, the consent of the parties or their guardian must be free. What consent? Bridegroom propose freely. This freely is comprising of his consent and no compulsion, no force and any other thing. In the same time, even in respect of bride, yes, she will accept, not propose, she will accept freely. So this is the competitiveness. This is the competitiveness where she accept kabul karna. The required formalities are duly completed. What is the procedure? And the procedure required formalities. So required formalities to write down nikhanama by the qazi and see that both have accepted, and even under witness only it will occur. So all these formalities are there. So required formalities are duly to be completed. Fourth and the last one is that there must not be any prohibition or impediment in the contracting the marriage. What does it mean? There must not be any prohibition, that is alliances. While going for alliances, there must not be any such of the thing which should obstruct, and the society will not usually confront. Even society should not confront in that respect. So prohibition or impediment in contracting the marriage. So everything will go smoothly according to this capacity, procedure, formality, essential, necessity. So the nikah will occur very smoothly. So few things generally you must know. Mental fitness, what I have said is, we must be good, mentally good, sound of mind, soundness of mind. That is nothing but a mentally this one. Age I have mentioned. That is the age of puberty is most important here. Bridegroom may get her puberty between 12 years to 15 years, and meanwhile she may go for the marriage, and that marriage must not be consummated. She must stay with the mother, father and maternal uncle home only, and later on, without consummation of marriage, and if she had got puberty and her age being 15 to 18 years, whether she can go for repudiation, that is giving away the marriage, or she can accept this marriage, and everything can be that everything will be in the hand of that bride only. Even for that one also, nobody shall come forward to bar her, force her, compel her, discourage her. Everything she has to take in herself, and she has to move forward. So that is the soundness of age of puberty, and here it is said, both the parties must be Muslim. Bride marrying a non-Muslim bridegroom is not permitted. Bride, the girl, marrying a non-Muslim boy is permitted. Why? Because property of Muslim property must be bequeathed with Muslim only. This is the seen or unseen classes. Muslim girl must not marry the non-Muslim boy. It's a religious, this one. And second one is property, whether movable, immovable, anything may be. This property of Muslim must not be bequeathed to non-Muslim. That is there. So under the Muslim law, so long as the religion of both the parties is Islam, the validity of their marriage is not affected by any differences in the sect or subsect. If the religion of the parties is different from non-Muslim to Muslim, where one party is Muslim but other is non-Muslim, so their marriage becomes inter-religious and it is not being accepted by the Muslim society. So for that constraint only, since bride must not marry the non-Muslim, so they will convert that non-Muslim into Muslim prior to the nikah, and then they will get into the nikah. This is the one. So what is there? That is, conversion is there. Conversion has made compulsory on the non-Muslim partner who wants to marry the bride from Muslim. So conversion is there. Later on I will come to this one, conversion and its effect. And also apostrophe. What apostrophe? Converting to other religion will in turn deals with apostrophe of the original religion by that particular person. So this registration is very much necessary. All nikahs, all marriage must have to be registered. Under Muslim personal law, registration marriage is not necessary. However, there are few states like Punjab, West Bengal, Bihar, Assam, Orissa have enacted some law during 1876, 1935, 1949 respectively for the registration of Muslim marriage and divorce in their territories. It is not very much required. However, if anyone goes, he can avail the benefit of various scheme of central government, or while moving away from the territory to seek the visa, to seek the passport, seek any other kind of admissions for any other registration. Perhaps they need this kind of registration certificate of marriage. So all put together, it is only a mere proof. It is mere proof. As a decree of court is a mere proof of being dissolution of the marriage. And here the marriage is also a kind of proof to say that this is the document where it is saying that these two persons have been married. So there are three types of marriages. Coming to the kinds of marriage, there are three types. One is valid, second is void, third one is irregular. Valid is known as Shahi. Shahi means royal. Shahi marriage is known as valid, where everything has been, all these steps have been followed by the bridegroom and bride. Kaji is also very happy. The fellow who are present, they are also happy, and everything goes smoothly, effectively and pleasantly. So then that nikah is known as Shahi marriage. Okay. Coming to the void type. What is void type? I will tell you, now I will give you. Void type of marriage in Arabic known as batil. What is batil? Void type, one should not marry. This is again with relations, close relatives. One should not marry. Close relatives, one should not marry. If they marry, it will become a batil. Society will not accept this marriage. And even to that marriage, children may come out. And those children are known as illegitimate children. And they have been not revered in the society. So, the prohibition of marriage between certain persons are being contracted under certain circumstances. Prohibition in Muslim law are of two kinds. Prohibition. One is absolute prohibition. What does it mean? Absolute prohibition. And second one is relative prohibition. Absolute prohibition and relative prohibition. What is absolute prohibition and the relative prohibition? Here, relative you may term it as affinity. affinity. We are having kind of affection. They are not directly concerned. Even then we are having affection. So this one, absolute is nothing but a blood relationship. Blood relationship. Or say consanguinity. Blood relationship or consanguinity. So two types of restriction are there. Among these personality, one should not get into the marriage. One is absolute prohibition, that is also known as blood relationship or consanguinity. And second one is, they are not relatives, but we are having a kind of affection, a total absolute affection, affiliation, and that will also curtail our relationship for the marriage. So, coming to the first one, absolute prohibition. Absolute prohibition is the marriage contracted in violation of any of the absolute prohibition relationship would be, must be termed as null and void. Even both Shia and Sunni will recognize this type of marriage not to occur. There is an absolute prohibition for a Muslim to marry a person who is within his or her prohibited relationship. Two persons are said to be within the prohibited relationship if they are related to each other by consanguinity, that is the relation by blood, affinity, the relation of marriage to the affiliation, and fosterages. This is the one. So, what is consanguinity? Here consanguinity, blood relationship. Why? How? One's own ascendant or descendant. I must not go for marriage with my own ascendants or descendants, howsoever. Second, descendants of my father. Descendants of my father or my mother, howsoever, I must not to go for marriage. Brother and sister of mine and their ascendant and descendant, with them also I should not tie up. This is the blood relationship. Okay. Next, coming to the affinity, the relationship by this affinity. Affinity means very closeness, nearness. It is created through often marriage. On the basis of affinity, one cannot marry with any of the following personality. A man is prohibited to marry his wife's mother or wife's mother's mother or any other personality in that lane. And a woman is prohibited to marry her husband's father's father and any other personality. That is there because of affinity, and this affinity will come because of marriage occurred there. A man is also prohibited to marry his wife's daughter, same daughter of his, that fellow only, or wife's daughter, or wife's granddaughter, however so. Similarly, a woman cannot marry her husband's son or husband's great grandson, how low soever it may be. So that's next one, third portion is category is fosterage. What do I mean by this fosterage? Relation to milk, relation for having fed the milk to that particular boy. Where a child under the age of 2 years or so has sucked the milk of any woman, such woman is called a foster mother of that particular child. Although there is no blood relationship exists between that mother and a woman and the child. She is treated as a real mother of that child for the purpose of prohibition in the marriage. The reason behind this rule is that breastfeeding to any child necessary for the child's life and development is regarded as an act of giving birth to the child. It's a very, very sensational. So anyone who prohibited on the ground of consanguinity and affinity is also prohibited by the reason of fosterage. For example, a man is prohibited to marry his foster mother's daughter, etc. But there are certain exemptions are there, we need not to go. So legal effect of the void marriage, this is most important. Void marriage is void, null and void. If you marry, you will be mostly affected. And the legal effect of a void marriage, a marriage which is void ab initio to begin with, or from the initial stage only, is a radically illegal union from the very beginning. It does not create any conjugal rights or obligation between the bridegroom and the bride. Cohabitation is unlawful, and children born out of this type of marriage are known as illegitimate. The husband and the wife do not get any mutual right in their inheritance. It itself is not a marriage. And to that they may get the children, but they have been termed as illegal. And even to that, no inheritance power between them. The wife is neither entitled to the dower and maintenance. You know, that dower amount must be given. And that may be given, may not be given. Even given, it doesn't to be taken into, or if it doesn't given, it is of no power here. So, neither entitled to the dower nor maintenance, particularly under this void type of marriage. As a void marriage is no marriage at all, the parties are free to contract another marriage lawfully. So, void must be cut, avoid. Void must be avoided, or else the meaning of getting into the marriage itself will be finished. So it is not good. Legal effects are there. So one must come into the third one, that is irregular type. Irregular type is known as fasid. These are all Arabic terms. You have to write like that only. Irregular type of marriage is known as fasid. You know, this is recognized only with the Indian Muslims, say Sunnis. Shia people does not recognize this one. Marriage against the rule of unlawful conjugation. The first point here you have to write. Why it is called irregular? Fasid. And this too happens only amongst Sunnis. Marriage against the rule of unlawful conjugation. Second point. Marriage with a fifth wife. Under polygamy, a Muslim, owing to the circumstances and his capacity, necessity, essentiality, he may go for 4 numbers of marriages. Under polygamy, that I will tell you later. Fifth one, if he goes fifth one in the presence of all the 4, it will become a irregular. Then how you will make it regular? That I will deal later. So marriage without 2 competent witnesses. In Indian scenario, among Sunnis, for all this marriage, nikah, there must be witnesses. Who are they? Witnesses are those two male, it requires two male, or one male is available, then you have to add two female signature as a witness, then witness. For marriage, two competent Muslim witnesses is must. Marriage with a woman who is neither a Muslim or Kitabi. Kitabi, you know, the term Kitabi comes to those followers of such religion who will celebrate their all rites and rituals and custom, culture, tradition owing to their holy religious book, referring to the holy religious book, say Bible. For Christian, it is the Bible, and owing to that book only, they will follow everything of their religious aspects. Zoroastrian, yes. Even Sikh people, Guru Granth Sahiba, they refer that particular book of holiness, and they will perform all their ritual duties. So those particular religion which do refers the kitab, that is book, for their performing or celebrating their rituals, they are known as kitabis. Kitabis and Muslims are to an extent, yes, they are seems to be okay now in many respects in the society, because there is possibility of getting into marriage. They can marry between them. So marriage with a woman undergoing iddat or performing the pilgrimage. Marriage with a woman undergoing iddat, I have already explained you. What is iddat? After listening to the word of talaq, talaq, talaq by the husband, the dissolution of marriage occurs instantly, and the woman has to go for seclusion. What is seclusion? Isolation. She has to remain alone. She must not have any kind of sexual enjoyment with any personalities. And she must dwell in the house of her past or former husband. And this should go for continuous of 3 menstrual period, or say 90 days. It may increase. Exemption are there for only few cases. So that is that period. So marrying a woman during her iddat is also irregular. So that can be, all irregular type of marriages can be made regular, and then it will become a valid type of marriage. Then it will become a valid type of marriage. So this is the coming to dissolution of marriage. I have already dealt. Okay. Next, we shall. So all the 3 types of marriage: valid, that is Shahi type; void, Batil type; and irregular type of marriage. We have dealt with all these 3. And void type, one should not go for this type of marriage. You must avoid this one. Even in Hindu law, they are advocating the same. Void type of marriage must not to be occur, because it must be at any cost, because society will not accept this kind of marriage. When society itself is not accepting, the whole core of its essentiality will be in vain. It goes to waste. So void must be avoided. Irregular, though it is irregular at a first sight, yes, it can be made regular with some one way or the other way. So the fasid is nothing but an irregular type of marriage. And put together, we have completed the marriage portion. Marriage. Dissolution. Dissolution is very important. It is widely spread one, and it has many forums. And I have dealt already under the main topic only recently. So you have to refer that one. So with this, I am completing the portion marriage. Here marriage is known as not a wedding or something. It comes under a kind of contractship. Agreement will be there because of proposal and acceptance. And that is known as nikah, Arabic term of marriage. Marriage we should not, because for our understanding we used to term this like as marriage or wedding. There is no such thing, such particular thing will not be there. But nikah is there. Though it is Arabic, it is being used very, very profusely by the Muslim party. So nikah, so according to nikah, that marriage will do occur, and it has its own symptoms, significances, and put together. Today we have learned definition, capacity, formalities and procedure, essentiality of the nikahs. It varies a lot with Hindu. Hindu, we will say that it is a sacramental, very, very holy tie-up between the boy and the girl. But where it is nothing but a contract, agreement with terms and conditions for an object having some value, and it is for a duration, and under certain terms and conditions only it will run. Okay. Then, more than that, the kinds of marriage. In examination, they may ask capacity, essentiality or necessity, and the kinds of marriage. For that purpose, today's portion will be more helpful, and in later class I will do apostasy and conversion. Apostasy and conversion. It's a peculiar feature. In the initial state only we will get what is apostasy. I will tell you in detail in my next class. Conversion is also there. Coming to the polygamy. Under Muslim law, polygamy and muta marriage. Fourth type, I may say, fourth type is muta marriage. Why I am saying fourth type? Because actually three types are there. Sunni people, say Indian Muslims, have considered only the valid, void, irregular. Whereas Arabian Shia people, they have considered only two, that is valid Shahi marriage and void Batil type of nikah. And in addition to these two, though we have taken the irregular type as one type, but those people, they took muta marriage as the type. What is muta? Muta is nothing but a temporary type of marriage they used to solemnize. And it will hold many purposes, and according to the usage, needing, they will go for muta. Muta marriage is a type or kind of marriage which is being duly recognized by Shia of Arabic.